if we look at what is likely to come, it will certainly be a bloody battle. The IDF will certainly lose hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, but nevertheless, they will use this approach of advancing a little bit more slowly in order to spare Israeli lives. And in the end, they will achieve a military victory. The question is if long-term it will be a political victory as well. Those things are, of course, unfortunately, very difficult to predict in the Middle East. It is a part of the world which is very unstable and has been for a long time. And sometimes you have this butterfly effect where something unexpected, a small little detail can lead to very unexpected results. And this is probably what Hamas has been hoping for as well, because as I mentioned in a previous episode, they have been increasingly politically isolated from the rest of the Arab world. They're trying to shake things up. It's a little bit of a Maoist strategy in which you simply tear down an existing structure and hope that wherever the pieces land, that something new will be built out of this. But exactly what, you don't know at the moment when you smash it to pieces.
And this, of course, is the great problem. Whereas if we go back to the Warsaw Uprising, of course, that wasn't a problem. It was quite simple. It was the Second World War. And Poland was fighting in various theatres, run by a government in exile in London, of which the Warsaw Uprising was a valid, if I may use that word, a valid military operation.
Absolutely.
And the other difference was, of course, that in the Warsaw Uprising, the Polish Home Army was trying to A, remove the Germans, but B, defend the people. Whereas we've seen Hamas, they used the people of the Gaza Strip as cover.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas the Israeli Defense Force, of course, is trying to defend Israel. And this, I think, is but this is always the case with terrorists. They do things because they think that there is a limit to which we will not stoop, so they will stoop below it. You know, if you're a terrorist, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to blow up the American embassy. I'm going to blow up the, I don't know, Intercontinental Hotel. No, I'm going to blow up the Children's Hospital. And this is the terrorist mentality.
Absolutely.
To shock us into sort of surrender.
And also, as you mentioned, using the fact that there are simply some targets that a normal, regular army will not attack. So we spoke earlier about this extensive network of tunnels below the Gaza Strip. And it's worth noting that many of the weapon depots that are in those tunnels, or exits and entries from these tunnels, they are strategically located beneath hospitals, beneath schools, and various other similar facilities which any Israeli airstrike on such a target would naturally create an enormous outcry, both from the domestic political environment in Israel, that simply the people would be horrified by a hospital with 40, 50, 60 civilian casualties being destroyed in an airstrike just to destroy a weapons depot that is below the hospital. It is not something that is considered to be politically and morally viable. However, these terrorist organizations, they have very, very different standards.
And they're not held to. I mean, as we've seen, and I keep coming back to it because it is actually quite shocking, all these marches in favour of Hamas, and you saw in London people wearing the little badges of the
and the paragliders.
Yes, exact paragliders. And this is just extraordinary.
I think many of these people, they simply have so little knowledge that they don't really understand what it is
because
they support.
If they met Hamas, and these people, Hamas would chop their heads off as well. They wouldn't, just for being, the fact they've been marching in favour of Hamas, if they ever, of course they're cowards, they would never go anywhere where they're likely to meet the real Hamas, would probably have no compunction in...
Absolutely.
I don't care that you've been on a march supporting Hamas. You're an evil imperialist Westerner, so off with your head sort of attitude.
No, whatever your stance is on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that is up to you. Everybody can have their position, and as long as they can argue for it, it's a valid point. But if a day after you see these pictures of 1,000 or 2,000 Hamas fighters breaking into settlements and murdering civilians, children, beheading children. There were such cases.
Yeah.
There was a report the other day that from one of these kibbutzes where they recovered 280 bodies, 80% of them had traces of torture, and the children as well.
Yes,
so,
shocking.
Murdering the children is not enough. They need to be tortured first.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I had hoped, but of course the clock in the corner of the studio is defeated. I had hoped to actually also briefly touch on the other great example of urban warfare from World War II, Stalingrad. But maybe we'll cover that on a future edition. But in the meantime, thank you very much, Adam. That's been fascinating, bringing history right up to date. Well, there we are. Adam's brought history right up to date. As we say, and I forget who originally said it, history may not repeat itself, but it often rhymes, and we're seeing, alas, more of the same. It's an ever-changing story, and we'll continue to try and bring you these parallels here on Poland Daily History. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.